Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with me, Kevin Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, ultimately effective results. Joining me today in Marketing Leadership segment, Marketing Communications expert and co-host Craig Pagely. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm alive and well, thanks. Just carrying a bit of a bacterial chest and throat infection, but apart from that, kicking on. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to continuing our insightful chat of last week. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm doing my thing, and as always. But I want to mention to everybody, it's a happy birthday to you, Craigie.
Yeah, thank you.
May it be a wonderful one, and may this be the year that some moving and shaking happens for you, and I can really see it happening. So, I hope you have a wonderful year ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's gonna unlock some exciting things, and I know that we're gonna do some exciting things in the process.
Craig, so as you mentioned, we're going to be continuing our conversation from last week, as there were a few trends that we did not get to cover in that conversation. Where we should.
Given the connectivity is dropping, I don't know if it's my side or your side, but I'm just going to jump straight in, okay?
Yeah.
So yes, Kevin, last week we started our month of discussing marketing, media, and communications related topics, kicking off with a report that I came across on McKinsey.com titled The State of Consumer 2024, What's Now and What's Next. The report was written by Christina Adams, Kelly Eldredge, and Sanjal Kohli, and it was published on the 10th of June 2024. And the report opens with a few important key points that set the context for the findings, and I want to quickly reference a few of those points from the opening paragraph, Kevin. So point one is that middle-income consumers are feeling the squeeze and worrying about inflation, but they actually aren't holding back on splurges. Point two is aging consumers in retirement are also splurging, but it seems that they are no longer brand loyalists and moving between brands. And then point three of the opening salvo is that young consumers in Asia and the Middle East are actually more likely than those in Western markets to switch to higher priced brands, something that really stood out for me. The paragraph two notes that consumers have continued to defy expectations and behave in atypical ways, keeping consumer goods manufacturers and retailers on their toes. More than ever, companies that cultivate a detailed, up-to-date understanding of today's and tomorrow's consumers, who they are, what they want, and where and how they shop, will be best positioned to succeed.
Craig, and I think what was interesting about last week's conversation was that we really spoke about how generations are consuming as well. So guys, definitely check that out, because it's the emerging trends on that is really fascinating.
And in fact, to that point, Kevin, so we covered 6 of the 9 trends in last week's conversation, but I quickly want to provide an overview of those 6 trends we cover, because the front end really talks about the generational behavior and some interestingly inverse behavior to what we expected in some regards. So let's just jump quickly into the summary. Trend 1 is titled Young People in Emerging Markets. And what we noted here is that by 2030, 75% of consumers in emerging markets will be between the ages of 15 and 34. And a lot of that sits on the African continent. Young consumers aged 18 to 24 have a strong desire to spend on premium products and are twice as likely to opt for higher priced brands and retailers than young consumers in advanced countries. And that for me was one of those sort of almost contradictory statements that stood out. Trend 2 is titled Retired and Ready to Spend, and the population size of people older than 65 is growing faster than those younger than 65. This due to the realities of longer life expectancies and declining birth rates around the world. And despite the financial constraints that accompany retirement, aging consumers across all income levels are willing to spend on discretionary items, and we noted that travel was definitely one of those. Trend 3 is titled The Squeeze But Splurging Middle, and again, this is one of those those anomalies that stood out for me, is that conventional wisdom suggests that this group of consumers will actually clamp down on their discretionary spending, but research findings note something quite different. And instead, this middle income consumer group in Europe and the United States say they plan to splurge on discretionary items at a rate that is comparable with high income consumers.
And Craig, again, just what's interesting about that is that splurging that's happening in the middle class, where you would think that a lot of people are actively wanting to save rather than splurge. Yet, that's not what's happening.
And I think just another layer to that, Kevin, is that possibly going through COVID, coming out of COVID, there was a lot of saving and non-spending within that period. So there may be some discretionary capital available, which is leading to this kind of behavior. But that's just one side of the equation. Yeah. Trend 4 is titled Brand Exploration. And it notes here that when they couldn't find exactly what they needed because of pandemic-era supply chain disruptions, roughly half of consumers switched products or brands. And I can tell you now, many have not gone back to their old repertoires. In advanced markets, over a third of consumers have tried different brands, and approximately 40% have switched retailers in search of better prices and discounts. Inflation and economic uncertainty are most definitely inducing this behavior across the world, Kevin. Trend 5 is titled Sustainability Value Upstages Values. In recent years, young consumers definitely prioritized sustainability considerations when making purchases. We've covered a really good show topic on that. While saying that they still care about sustainability, young consumers are now, however, making clear trade-offs in the face of economic uncertainty and inflation. And in Europe and the USA, Kevin, fewer Gen Zers and millennials ranked sustainability claims as an important purchase factor at the beginning of 24 than they did in 2023. And then trend 6, the last of the 6 we covered last week, is titled The Worldwide Wellness Wave. And the report notes that the health and wellness products and services industry has been in high demand in advanced economies for several years already. And these categories are also growing quickly in emerging markets now. And in some cases, growth in intent to spend on health and wellness products in emerging markets is outpacing growth in advanced markets. And those are the summary takeaway points from the 6 key trends we looked at last week, Kevin.
Okay, the interesting one there for me is the value upstages values. And if you see it like that, sustainability for younger consumers it's still important, but what we're valuing, and like I was saying last week, I think the world crisis that the world is in right now is maybe part to blame for how people are going about spending something on what they value versus what they a company's values, purely based on the fact that like currently the world has terrible decision makers in power, and people actually just want to have nice things. People want peace. People want, so they're spending time on doing something that makes them feel better.
That's the good end point you made there, because that plays into the me versus we proposition, and we definitely picked up on a paragraph, and that's in one of our previous shows, where they're not turning their back on the principles and values that they stand for, but they're less engaged in leaning into them and making some decisions outside of that realm, Kevin.
Yeah. So, I mean, what can we learn about the final 3 trends, Craig?
Yeah, Kevin. So trend 7 is titled Wellness for Women, and it's a perfect segue from trend 6. Investment in women's wellness is definitely growing, with consumers in both advanced and emerging markets indicating a greater interest in spending on women's wellness products and services, as well as the adjacent product categories. And here we learned that 48% of women in emerging markets intend splurging on beauty and personal care products and fitness. compared with only 22% of women in advanced markets. And it's interesting to see, that the emerging market women really want to come to the fore and position themselves as much healthier, fitter, self-care oriented mindsets. Young women are especially interested in wellness, with Gen Z women across both emerging and advanced markets noting that they expect to spend more on personal care goods and services compared with Gen Xers and baby boomers.
Craig, I do find that interesting that this is still to be a trend in the world around women, because women, in my head, and it's complete bias, but women have been leading the trend for wellness, so I think to me, it was always the case. But to see that it's still a trend in the world, and it's trending upwards still, that's quite interesting. And that's, it's a good thing. I think, it should be.
Yeah, very much so. It's, as much as women may well have been leading the trend in the wellness category, they most definitely have been leading the trend in personal health care and beauty and things like that. And I think, this is a perfect parallel in that particular headspace again, Kevin.
Yeah.
Let's see when the facts around men's participation in personal health and wellness comes to the fore. I wonder what those factors are, because there's a lot of lazy couch potatoes, swirling beer, and eating potato chips in the men's category here. Kevin, trend 8 and 9 are associated with the question, where will consumers shop? And some interesting little facts that we take out of this. And what we learned primarily from this question is, knowing what consumers want means little if businesses do not meet consumers where they are. Global migration patterns, both to and from major urban hubs, are changing where consumers spend their time and money in the physical world, with growth in social commerce accounting for new movement in the digital world.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting these next consumers, these next trends at least, because the next one the last time we mentioned the new urban spots, that was really, but I mean, tell us more about that, because that's a really interesting one.
Yes, so obviously the report primarily references the Northern Hemisphere at this particular point. It does make some reference to EMEA and Africa, but the stats from the Northern Hemisphere really are poignant and important for us to understand implications across the rest of the world. So trend 8 is titled The New Urban Hotspots. And what we learn here is that both in advanced and emerging markets, Kevin, people are seeking out new opportunities and a better quality of life. That's obvious coming out of COVID. But in advanced markets, consumers are moving away from larger cities. For instance, in the Pacific Northwest and Northeast of the United States, they're moving to secondary cities, or cities with populations between 50 and 500,000 people only. Really coming down in size, more personal, intimate kind of cities. 66% of the fastest growing cities in the US are South and West. The cost of living is lower in these cities than in the larger cities. And obviously the remote work opportunities are in abundance in these cities, and both of those play into the quality of life proposition. As expected, millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers are collectively driving this trend. And a very important point to note on trend 8 here, Kevin, is I'm going to quote this. Just because US consumers are moving to scaled down versions of metropolises does not mean they are curtailing their spending. Just as many consumers in secondary cities say they plan to splurge, as do consumers in the largest American cities. So moving into more quality lifestyle propositions doesn't mean that they actually are trimming their spend in any way whatsoever. It may also mean that they increase it in some areas because the cost of living in these cities is somewhat less. Emerging markets will, however, continue to see urban population growth in both megacities and secondary cities as consumers move in search of better economic opportunities and improved well-being. And two stats here: by 2035, 43% of the Indian population will reside in urban areas, up from 35% in 2018. And by 2040, there will be 537 million people in African urban centers, making the African urban population the largest in the world, over 500 million people.
That's insane. Craig, but I think that something that complements the new urban hotspots kind of, or this trend, is the urban farming that's also happening. People are starting to grow their own vegetables, and their sidewalks are looking different, and they're taking a different approach to just the usual chain store kind of approach to buying food. So I know a lot of people who just make their own food. They grow their own food and use their own food in their backyards, kind of thing. So I think the way that we're doing life is slowly shifting as well. And also, urban areas are usually crazy, bustling, traffic-infested busyness. Like, it's just, and if you can move to a smaller urban, space that is a little bit less, populated and a little bit less frantic, I think that's probably speaks to why a lot of people are doing this, because it's not really possible.
It's not, and that whole self-fulfilling quality of life proposition, I like that. I really do. Just in terms of urban hotspots, and picking up on the likes of the African continent, there are 5 key areas that are noted as the fastest growing, rapidly urbanizing towns and cities in South Africa, and these are Polokwane, Rustenburg, Vanderbijl Park, Nelspruit, and Ekurhuleni. They're the fastest growing urban areas, with the annual population growth rate between 1.6 and 2.9% over the last decade, compared to Cape Town, which is the big focus of the semigration. They've got an annual population growth rate of 1.4%. But definitely what's happening here is, in this urbanization, it's putting a lot more strain on the infrastructure in those smaller cities. So there's going to need to be a much bigger investment around better roads, electricity supply, water supply, sewage, maintenance and services. So there is a challenge, an infrastructure challenge that comes with this urbanization, and that's obviously something that happens across the world.
Great, but just on that point, like, one of the things that I've noticed I've heard of is how many people have moved to Cape Town and complain about how bad the traffic is. And you kind of go, Cape Town's fantastic and it has a lot to offer. But when the semigration that's happened in the last 4 or 5 years is really taking over, and it's the more people in that city, the more difficult it is to just live in the city. It's not fun.
So Kevin, 100%. The reality of Cape Town, if one starts looking at the city, the densification of Cape Town really doesn't have much chance to become more densified, and there isn't much space at all to add lanes to the key routes in and out of the city. It's constrained from that point of view. There may be 2, 3 prominent routes in and 3 prominent routes out. Those are never going to be able to grow in width, and therefore capacity will always be constrained. The only way to overcome that is to start putting in monorails and move people in and out of the city in different modes of transport, less cars in the city, monorails with key stops, with localized parking lots on the fringes of the cities and things like that. And it would need a really big master plan of new urban thinking to get Cape Town to become a lot less congested. It is a real challenge, but at the end of the day, if you can deal with that on a Monday to Friday and know the city is yours on the weekend, gosh, nothing wrong with being in that place.
Good city to live in, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So trend 9 is titled The New Urban Hotspots. So moving from, at least we've just tackled that. I'm being silly. What it's got a different title which I've misread. Picking up on that, what I do want to make a note of is that China has been leading the world in the adoption of social commerce. This is the trend 9, which is associated with the growth of commerce, social commerce. Wrong title there, my apologies. And we also know that consumers browse and buy directly through social media and content creation platforms, and the majority of this absolutely has been happening in the Asian markets. And what we note from the report is that social commerce markets in China and India are maturing at a rapid rate, much faster than those in the mature economies. But then the likes of Brazil, Saudi, and the United Arab Emirates are actually rocketing up behind China and India. And what was interesting for me, apart from Brazil being much further away, there seems to be a collective of the Middle East, Africa into Asia focus. And I really don't know why that would be. It'd be interesting to get to understand, is it because the distribution value chain is so much more effective there that there is a lean into buying from this proposition? I'm not particularly aware of that, though. A point to note is that consumers in these emerging market countries are consistently spending more on purchases made through social media platforms compared with consumers in Europe and United States. And that just validates exactly what I was saying. Attempts to grow the social commerce market in the West have had limited success, as companies simply may have just been too early to embrace this opportunity, with a report noting that social commerce in the United States is expected to expand to 145 billion US dollars by 2027, up from 67 billion today. So you can see it's more than doubling in the expected next 3 years, and that probably is because they missed the opportunity, may well have been in it too early, and haven't embraced the distribution chain on the back end of that either. Another report from McKinsey, which was published on October the 19th, 2022, this report, titled Social Commerce, The Future of How Consumers Interact with Brand, notes that Gen Zers and millennials are propelling this growth as they make purchases on social media 4 times more often than older generations do, Kevin, with more than 335 of Gen Z and millennials surveyed in that particular research, responding that they make purchases on social media in the prior 3 months. So have you made a purchase on social media?
Well, I do it all the time, Craig.
Through social media, is that so? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of folk are going into app and using the defined purchase apps, but when you sifting through Facebook and Insta, are you buying straight into that? So you would fall nicely into the Gen Z and millennial classification of making purchases in the prior 3 months at least. And how frequently do you do that?
Probably once a month. And I use Facebook Marketplace because it is you do get cheap stuff that like, for example, if you're doing your garden, you could go on Facebook Marketplace and look for people selling plants. So, and you literally get beautiful plants that you can go and like buy and pick up, and you get it at minimal cost.
A fraction of the cost, yeah.
A fraction of the costs. So, I use it for that. But I just want to point out, just recently I had a coaching client who's actually started with me from Saudi Arabia, and she works in construction and she works on the line. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, when you hear about it in the news, but when you actually connect with people and you start realizing, and she was saying, there's over 200 different types of cultures and nationalities working in this space. And it's this the most amazing apartment building and sort of townhouse complex in the middle of nowhere. And you kind of go, it's emerging markets like that. You kind of go, it's so weird that, the line's even taking place. It's a weird concept. It's a weird sort of idea that they've had around creating a city, but it's full steam ahead, and it's happening. So you can see that like there's certain economies that are really driving the economies forward, and with absolute action and purpose. But it's nice to connect with people who do that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I follow the development of the line every single month. Go and look at the videos and see how it's progressing and things like that. And it's an incredibly fascinating concept. But just to answer my own point earlier on, I do think that the emerging economies in many instances leapfrog some of the technologies of the established economies because they're constantly working to better themselves. And I think that leapfrogging is definitely China, India, Saudi, the UAE working collectively to improve their well-being and improve their position on the broader world here. Kevin, consumers in these emerging markets consistently spend more on purchases made through the platforms compared with those in the United States and Europe, as I noted. But we will, when we see this jump from 145 to at least from 67 billion to 145 billion, the likes of the Amazons of the world and that will really need to be gearing up their capability a lot better than they are currently, because when in the next 3 years, 2.5 times the amount going to be purchased through social commerce, the supply and delivery chains really need to be honed in being able to meet that demand here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kevin, the report ends with the section titled 4 Imperatives to Win the Consumer of the Future. And we note that the most important consumer companies will be those that act on the following 4 imperatives. And the first is to build micro-targeting capabilities. The second is to picking up on wellness, invest in wellness. The third is to propel the social digital agenda that we've just discussed. And the fourth is to offer premium products where they matter. Again, talking to that point, meet the consumers where they are and what their needs are. So take a quick look at these 4 imperatives, starting with imperative 1, build micro-targeting capabilities. Rather than putting consumers in their predefined and often quite outdated boxes or classifications, companies really need to focus on the micro-targeting and build much deeper understanding of consumers' preferences, bringing the whole data machine to work. This involves taking a smart reach approach whereby consumer businesses use their consumer data to target specific micro segments of consumers who may demonstrate particular shopping behaviors or preferences. And the more you work the data, the more you're going to find these kinds of micro data, micro segments, Kevin. We also learned that imperative 2, investment in wellness, tells us that consumer goods leaders have a chance to reevaluate their product development roadmaps and consider whether they have more opportunities to introduce personalized wellness products to priority consumer groups. And again, stemming out of the first, understanding your data, being able to look at the points of, do we need to improve our product development and product offering. Consumers across the globe want data and science-backed health and wellness solutions, seeing the two coming together nicely there. Best-in-class companies should evaluate opportunities to lean into these offerings and other wellness growth areas, for example, women's health and healthy aging propositions.
Great. I know there's 2 more, but I want to ask you a question once you've gone through them.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. What we learned from imperative 3, which is propel the social digital agenda, we note that companies should take steps to engage with consumers in their social media platforms and other digital platforms. This involves identifying the right channels and right platforms, knowing when, how, and why they're there, creating attractive content, and then obviously tailoring strategies to meet the evolving consumer needs. We see innovative international companies testing new approaches through social commerce to connect with consumers on local level, nice engagement for conversation and getting to understand their needs. Some are mobilizing local key opinion leaders to precisely target these consumers and actually create viral videos and digital campaigns that resonate with them. And social media and privacy chats through platforms such as WeChat help to continually engage the consumers. And then the final imperative is offer premium products where they matter. And the 3 points here is offering premium products in relevant categories can help improve brand loyalty, even if it's small bundles of loyal consumers. The frequency of purchase really helps the bottom line. Consumer brands should identify which categories are ripe for this, such as experiential travel, where splurge activity is common even across middle-aged, income, and aging consumers. We noted that at the beginning of the conversation. Some categories are more suitable for value based on trade down behavior or frequent brand exploration, and integrating loyalty and pricing strategies, instituting different price tiers, and tailoring product assortment at local and channel levels are definitely ways that consumer businesses can provide much deeper and long-standing value to consumers while managing and helping them manage economic pressures, Kevin.
So as you were speaking, Craig, I was just thinking now, because it breaks it down into 4 imperatives to win the consumer of the future. Now, if we're looking at building micro-targeting, investing in wellness, propelling your social, a digital agent agenda at least, and offering premium products, just for those listening to, marketing out there and considering their strategies, when is it too much, or is it never enough? Like, you know what I mean? So, you're a business, you're a company, and you're actively wanting to make your business happen. But building micro strategies and micro targeting, investing in wellness, are these imperatives applicable at all areas, or is it a case of saying, well, these are some of the areas that we're going to be notably focused on? Like, where's that line, or is it?
Kevin, that's a great question. It's fluid. It really is fluid, and it doesn't necessarily apply to every single product, brand, or category on the planet. That said, when you understand what your product, brand, solution set, and offerings are, it'll be very easy to understand that you may have a very niche end on one spectrum to a very broad offering on the other spectrum, and within the broad offering, there will still be subsets of categories there. There's no doubt about that. At the niche end is purely micro-targeting. It's really understanding why they're there, why they're using it, how they got there, and how to improve the product offering in that particular space. And that is one side of your strategy. So you could have a brand portfolio that actually straddles all of them. Some brands are just in the niche space, and that is pure micro-targeting. Some brands are just in the broader context of quick service retail, grab a burger and chips, and off you go, no matter what age group, income level you are as well. So that's a full expansive stretch. All of this, at the end of the day, wellness is a critically important component in the conversation around life and behavior, and it inevitably will spread itself into much of the purchase decision making you have in life, because from eating to drinking to being active in the day all have a wellness component to it. And from the social agenda, social platforms, we all engage in them. So understanding how to use it effectively for a business is important. How to engage in those smaller conversation pieces is important. And then when you've got that particular aspect in place, you'll definitely be able to understand, can you offer a premium product? Does it matter to those different segments? If it does, then you're getting back into the micro-targeting capability, and you start forging those relationships and building more of a loyalty that you can even hone your product and solution offering even more.
So is it fair then to say, as a brand, these 4 imperatives are what consumers are busy with, and be aware of which one of these imperatives apply or are mostly applicable to your brand?
Kevin, I think the understanding where and when premium products are required is applicable to all brands. Understanding the social digital agenda is applicable to all brands. Understanding how to and whether you need to focus on micro-targeting capabilities is applicable to all brands. Some brands don't have the wellness component built into it.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Fascinating. Guys, if you want to check out the State of Consumer 2024, what's now and what's next, I know that Lauren's going to be putting the links in the box below. Craig, thank you for a quote for today. It's a short one, but around consumers. Customer service shouldn't be about just be a department. It should be about the entire company. And I think that speaks to this whole imperative.
That absolutely does.
Right, and that's from Tony. I don't know how to say his surname. It's Hsieh. Asai, I suppose. Tony Asai. So, but there we go. A quote for the day. Craig, so what are we looking up for? Or what are we looking to next week when we are on the show?
I'm trying to get 2 guests to join us. They wrote a book, which could be a nice segue to this because it's a local book with some very good local nuanced references, and I want to see if there's some trends that they've found in the marketplace when they wrote their book that actually give us a deeper insight into the mindset and behaviors of different segments in South Africa.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Please remember to like and share and tune into Lunchtime Series every week, Wednesday and Thursday. For myself and Craig, have a fantastic week. Craig, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Yeah, have a good one, Kevin. Thank you.
Cheers for now. Bye.